a sincere story of growing pains for those who've gone astray. The Catcher in the Rye. Forward when we lose our way in the rye field. There are countless books in the world, and sometimes the act of reading itself can feel overwhelming or intimidating. This is especially true for those who have been out of school for a long time or haven't had many opportunities to read. Questions like what book should I read, is the content too difficult, or what can I gain from reading, can make starting to read feel daunting. But books are not merely tools for transmitting knowledge. At times, they reflect our own image like a mirror, listen to our worries like a friend, and quietly indicate the path we should take like a guide. Today, I'd like to introduce to you a work that can be a friend, a mirror, and a guide. J.D. Salinger's novel, The Catcher in the Rye. Since its 1951 publication, this book has captured the hearts of countless young people worldwide and remains a symbol of wandering youth to this day. Feel free to set aside any worries about understanding it without knowledge or cultivation. In fact, this book doesn't demand complex knowledge or high cultivation. If you've ever felt confusion in life, grumbled about the world, or wondered, why do I feel this way, you may find empathy and comfort in the protagonist, Holden Caulfield. Let's now step into the story of this unique young man together. Part 1: Holden Caulfield and his phony world. The protagonist of The Catcher in the Rye is 16-year-old Holden Caulfield. Born into a wealthy family and attending a good private school, he is expelled from his fourth school, Pensy Prep, due to poor academic performance and social maladjustment. The novel is composed of Holden's experiences during a few days of roaming New York City after receiving his expulsion notice and before returning home, as well as his inner monologue. 1. This world is full of phony people, the world through Holden's eyes. Holden Caulfield's most striking characteristic is his intense cynicism and critical consciousness. He labels almost everything around him as phony and despises it. In his eyes, adults are hypocritical, society is corrupt, and schools are nothing more than superficial educational systems. Even his teachers, well-dressed theater actors, and girls he dates are considered phony by him. School life. Holden criticizes his school, Pensy Prep, as a place full of phony people. He despises the school's pretentiousness, how it doesn't even properly teach but pretends to be a prestigious institution, and how students feign disinterest in each other while secretly burning with competitiveness. He finds the superficiality of common school traditions, such as graduation speeches or idolizing sports heroes, hypocritical. The adult world. Holden feels disgusted by adult conversations. He detests insincere compliments, self-serving, materialistic attitudes, and the double standard where adults demand obedience from children while engaging in their own nonsense. He resents how adults abuse their authority and status simply because they are grown-ups. Love and relationships. Holden also fails to find sincerity in romantic relationships. While he dates girls for superficial reasons, such as their looks, he quickly becomes disillusioned and bored by their shallow conversations and actions. He yearns for genuine connection but builds emotional walls due to fear of being hurt. In this way, Holden views the world through a critical lens. He longs for purity and truth but finds it hard to discover in reality. His attitude isn't just complaining, it also reflects our own sense of emptiness and loneliness. Haven't we all sometimes thought, why is that person so fake, or why is the world so unfair, or where is the real thing I'm looking for? Holden's critique of a phony world is essentially a universal question about hypocrisy and injustice in the society we live in. 2. Grief and longing for purity. His sister Phoebe and deceased brother Ali. Behind Holden's cynical attitude lies deep grief and a desperate yearning for purity. Two figures who significantly influenced his life are his younger sister Phoebe and his deceased younger brother Ali. Deceased brother Ali. Holden remembers Ali as the purest and most ideal existence. Ali died young of leukemia, and Holden recalls him as a child who was never phony, pure, kind, and always smiling. Ali's death left Holden with deep sorrow and trauma, and he wishes to protect the purity of others like Ali from being tainted. The episode where Holden writes poetry on Ali's baseball glove reveals Ali's literary sensitivity and innocence while highlighting how much Holden cherished Ali. Younger sister Phoebe. Phoebe is the one person Holden genuinely connects with and sees as not phony. She is honest and innocent, listens to Holden, and occasionally sharpens his thoughts with insightful comments. In front of Phoebe, Holden sheds his pretense and shows his true self. Phoebe soothes Holden's troubled mind and serves as a hopeful figure who helps him move beyond his critical view of the world. Holden fears that Phoebe, too, might become tainted by the phony world as she grows up. Holden's intense longing for purity likely stems from his subconscious awareness of being easily contaminated by the world's phony nature. He fears joining the adult world and desperately resists becoming one of the phony people himself. 3. I want to be the catcher in the rye, Holden's dream and symbolism. The novel's title and Holden's most important wish is to become the catcher in the rye. This dream is most clearly revealed in his conversation with his sister Phoebe. Holden quotes a Robert Burns poem, though he misremembers it as if a body catch a body coming through the rye, to express his desire. I just want to be the one who watches the kids running through the rye field. If they run toward the edge of the field, like a cliff, I'll catch them before they fall. This passage is symbolic of Holden's innermost thoughts. Rye field represents a world of pure, untainted childhood, or early childhood. Cliff represents the dangerous boundary of the adult world, where purity is lost and one becomes contaminated by phony elements. Catcher symbolizes Holden's desperate wish to protect children's purity and prevent them from falling into the corrupt adult world. This dream is the result of Holden's grief from Allie's death and his longing for Phoebe's innocence, combined with his disillusionment with the adult world. Though he has already stepped into the adult world, he fervently wishes that at least innocent children remain untouched by its corruption. This is a self-sacrificing dream and showcases the purest and most beautiful part of Holden's inner self. Part 2. Growing pains found in the journey of wanderings, Holden's journey and insights. Holden's few days of wandering around New York are not just an act of rebellion but a painful journey of self-discovery. Though he experiences numerous frustrations and confusions, he also glimpses possibilities for growth. 1. Alienation and loneliness in disconnection from the world. Holden tirelessly tries to connect with people but constantly fails. Whether he approaches strangers in hotels or tries to meet old friends, he ends up frustrated, unable to achieve genuine communication. His conversations always remain superficial or end in misunderstandings. Meetings and disappointments. He goes on a date with his ex-girlfriend Sally Hayes but is repulsed by her vanity and carefree attitude toward the future, leading to an argument. He also leaves a bar after superficial conversations with women. Even his former teacher, Mr. Antolini, whom he respects, causes him to feel misunderstood and run away in fear. The walls he builds. While Holden criticizes the world's phony nature, ironically, he himself often behaves in phony ways. He shows off, lies, and shuts people out emotionally. This is a self-protective attitude to avoid getting hurt, but it ultimately deepens his loneliness. Absence of true friends. Though Holden often feels lonely and longs for friends, he actually has no one to share his true feelings with. He spends time alone watching movies or sitting in bars, observing people. This loneliness exacerbates his wandering and exhausts him mentally. Holden's alienation and loneliness are feelings familiar to many living in modern society. While we may seem connected to many people, there are times when we feel utterly alone and misunderstood. Holden's loneliness mirrors our own. 2. Small realizations amid confusion, the carousel and Phoebe. Holden's wandering reaches a turning point when he reunites with his sister Phoebe. He suggests running away with her, but Phoebe criticizes his irresponsible attitude and decides to stay in school. Phoebe shouts at Holden, "You don't like anything that's happening," forcing him to confront his negative worldview. At the end of the novel, Holden watches Phoebe ride the carousel. Phoebe tries to grab a gold ring but almost falls when she stretches for it. Although Holden fears for her safety, he gains an important realization. I knew the kids could fall off trying to catch the gold ring. But I also realized that I couldn't hold them back. They had to learn by falling and getting up on their own. This moment marks the peak of Holden's growing pains and the point where he revises his ideal of being the catcher in the rye. He realizes that he can no longer protect children's innocence absolutely. He accepts that children must grow by experiencing, falling, and learning. This subtle shift in Holden's perspective signals a slight change in how he views the world. Instead of hating all phony elements and disconnecting from them, he begins to understand that he must find his own path within them. 3. The novel's ending, growing pains that remain unfinished. The novel concludes with Holden recounting his story from a mental institution. He leaves behind the line, "I don't like to tell people things if I don't have to, because I don't want to make them sad," which suggests a growing desire to connect with others, the very world he once condemned as phony. The Catcher in the Rye does not present Holden with a happy ending or dramatic transformation. He remains confused and uncertain about his future. However, it is precisely this unresolved ending that gives the book its greatest charm. Life does not offer perfect answers, and growth is not achieved in an instant but is an ongoing process. The novel ends with Holden still searching for his path, but the seeds of internal change are subtly planted. Part 3 Insights The Catcher in the Rye offers us. This book is more than just a story about a young man's wandering. Its enduring popularity and mixed reception over the past 70 years stem from its universal, timeless message. Regardless of one's level of knowledge or cultivation, the questions and comfort this book offers are as follows. 1. Meeting the Holden Caulfield within you. At some point, we all feel, like Holden, that the world is hypocritical and full of phony people. From the unreasonable rules in school or the workplace, to politicians' double standards and the packaged lives on social media, we daily encounter the phony world Holden criticizes. While we may not openly complain like Holden, silently we feel frustration and disillusionment. The Catcher in the Rye pulls out the Holden Caulfield within us, our inner voice that grumbles silently and feels isolated. It offers comfort and empathy, making us feel, "I'm not alone in these thoughts and I've found a friend who understands me." The book reassures us that our confusing emotions are perfectly natural. 2. Continuous questions about purity and sincerity. Holden searches endlessly for purity and sincerity but eventually fails to find them fully in reality. At times, even he himself acts phony. This raises important questions. What exactly is purity? What does it mean to live sincerely? Is it enough to reject and criticize all hypocrisy, or should we find our own balance within it? The book does not provide answers. Instead, it prompts readers to reflect on distinguishing between real and phony in their lives and what values they should pursue. Becoming an adult might sometimes mean losing innocence and making compromises, but it's also about finding ways to maintain one's own sincerity within that process. 3. The meaning of growing into adulthood. Holden intensely resists entering the adult world, viewing it as a loss of innocence and contamination by hypocrisy. Yet, by the novel's end, he understands that children must fall, and he feels nostalgic for people. This suggests that becoming an adult is not simply getting older but understanding the world's complexity and finding oneself through relationships with others. We all experience the journey from childhood to adulthood. Along this path, we face the gap between ideals and reality, the weight of responsibility, and the burden of social roles. The Catcher in the Rye honestly portrays the pain and confusion of growing up, encouraging us to reflect on the meaning of our own growing pains. While becoming an adult isn't inherently good, it's not entirely bad either. Holden's journey subtly shows us this. 4. The importance of communication and understanding. One of Holden's greatest tragedies is his inability to communicate genuinely. Though he talks to people, he ends up isolating himself or causing misunderstandings. His cynical attitude ultimately isolates him. The book emphasizes the difficulty and importance of communication. Even if the world seems full of phony people, only through communication can we achieve true understanding and relationships. Holden's final line, "I want to miss people," implies that humans cannot exist in isolation. Even if relationships are imperfect or hypocritical, connecting with others helps us find life's meaning. The book challenges us with questions: are you communicating sincerely with someone? And are you making an effort to understand others? Conclusion: moving forward again toward the rye field. The Catcher in the Rye is not a difficult, esoteric classic novel. It feels like a sensitive, honest teenage boy from next door pouring out his heart. His complaints, grumblings, loneliness, and despair all contain emotions we have likely felt at some point. While reading can be important for gaining knowledge or cultivation, sometimes a single book is enough to comfort our hearts, encourage self-reflection, and open a new perspective for understanding the world. This is precisely what The Catcher in the Rye offers. No special preparation is needed to read this book. Simply having once experienced a confusing adolescence, currently feeling that the world is full of phony people, or feeling vague fears or hopes about becoming an adult is sufficient. As you follow the sincere, rough journey of Holden Caulfield, you will eventually discover your own rye field and wonder who your personal catcher might be, or perhaps who you could be someone else's catcher. So, don't hesitate. Step into Holden Caulfield's rye field now. Though you might get lost there, you may also find the beginning of discovering your own path. This book will offer you the warm comfort of you are not alone and pose brave, honest questions about the world.